Today, we had a Game 7 and a Game 1. The start to a series, the end to a series. We're going to talk about both. Starting off with the Golden State Warriors beating the Houston Rockets in 7. I know Rockets fans are pissed, not just because they lost the series. I mean, you were the underdog, even though you had the higher seed. At one point, you were down 3-1. You forced a Game 7. A lot of people didn't look at you as a real contender to win the series at all. You're not mad about losing the series, I want to guess. I want to guess you're mad because you lost to Steph Curry again. Just, I'm not trying to rub it in. But for the gazillionth time, you've lost to that guy. And you know what? There was not really a moment in time where I thought the Rockets were going to win this one, because even when Steph Curry was struggling in the first half, I think he went into halftime like 3 points. They were still up by double digits. And shout out to Buddy Hield for that. But like, I was thinking to myself, there's no way Steph Curry is going to stay this quiet on the offensive side of the ball for an entire game. And eventually he started to turn it up, hit a couple big shots down the stretch. He had his own personal 8-0 run in the fourth quarter. And that was really it. There's a couple different things that surprised the hell out of me. I was surprised to see Jonathan Kuminga get some burn early on. I know it was talked about by Steve Kerr that he wouldn't count it out, but for him to get some early burn, and not only just early burn, he got burned alongside Draymond and Jimmy Butler. And that was something that Steve Kerr went on the radio about like 2 months ago, saying like, yeah, Kuminga can't play with those two dudes. So for it to be a go-home situation, he's like, you know what, maybe he can play with those dudes. The minutes were awful. There were a lot of Warriors fans in my mentions when Jonathan Kuminga throughout the last week of the season, plus the end of like the postseason, like, man, Jonathan Kuminga ain't getting minutes. Is Steve Kerr bugging? The answer is probably not. And maybe that's just because he hasn't got a lot of burn, so he's lost his confidence, or he's lost a lot of his, or he's just really rusty. But in the minutes he has played in this series, not good at all. I don't expect him to play much in next series. Let's just say that. But yeah, this was a good team win for the Golden State Warriors. They had times in this game, though, where I absolutely hated the shot attempts they were getting. It was like Draymond Green pull-up jump shots and so on and so forth. But there are a few things that stood out in this game compared to some of the other ones. We did get a decent amount of the double big lineup for the Houston Rockets. And one thing that was different is they couldn't run a lot of zone with this double big lineup, because Buddy Hield was hitting his shot today, because Potts hit an early shot, which was really important to kind of change the dynamic of the way they play defense. And when you run this double big lineup, one of the luxuries you have is that you can run that zone, right? And if the others are hitting shots, and in this game they shot 42% from three, 42% from three. If the others are hitting shots, you can't really run that zone. And the Warriors did run their own zone. We're going to talk about that in a second. But with them not being able to run a zone, that means they had to go to man-to-man coverage. And we didn't get to see in the first 6 games of the series, when we did have a double big lineup, a lot of minutes where one of the bigs, Şengün or Steven Adams, were guarding Draymond Green. It's just too dangerous. It's too dangerous because Draymond Green is an amazing short roller. He can finish at the rim. Of course, he can make that extra pass. And the few times they did end up playing that man-to-man coverage with the double big lineup, Draymond Green was picking it apart. One of the times he got to the basket, and I actually don't remember if he finished the layup. It's Draymond Green, so I'm going to assume he didn't. But I know 2 of the times it ended up finding Buddy Hield on an open 3. It's like, oh yeah, we can't really do that too much. So now the one advantage that we had as a team, which is killing the offensive glass and running this double big lineup and mucking things up defensively, didn't really work out in this game, which is unfortunate for them that it happened in the Game 7. Right? They ended up really throwing them out of there. And you know, the Rockets offense was really predicated on them being able to get those second chance opportunities. And unfortunately for the Rockets, we didn't get an amazing Fred VanVleet game who had kept them afloat throughout the last couple. Let's quickly talk about the Houston Rockets at whole, because I think one of the things that was very apparent throughout this entire series is how much they're in need of a go-to scorer down the stretch. You don't change anything about the season, right? This is one of those teams that you want to see of your young players. Who do you think can hold their own in the playoff series? If we got some ideas, this was not a good Alperen Şengün game, all things considered. His touch was really off. He had a lot of bunnies that just missed. You can credit that to Draymond, who's been holding them to like 36% from the field when he's been guarded by him, or you can just credit it to him just losing his touch in his last game. But as a whole, you feel good about Alperen Şengün as a player for the next year's playoff run. You feel amazing about Amen Thompson, who was phenomenal in this game, ended up pulling his hamstring or whatever, but he was amazing, especially in that first half. We talk about Steph Curry having 3 points on 1 of 6 from shooting from 3 in that first half. A lot of that is Amen Thompson playing some amazing defense. You feel good about some guys like Jabari Smith Jr., who didn't have a great game today, but he had a couple great games throughout the series. And then you feel bad about others. You know who I'm talking about. And I just don't know what the remedy for that is. I don't know if that means that you go win. You're like, hey, man, who wants Jalen Green? We need a go-to scorer. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Who else is available? Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. Zion. No, I just don't know who's available. But, like, Jalen Green's stat lines were just pretty nasty. 7 points, 38 points. Whew, looks amazing there. 9 points, 8 points, 11 points, 12 points, and then 8 points. It just all around just was a really bad series. And it got to the point late in this game where the Rockets are trying to get back into it, right? It's like a 9-8 point game, and Jalen Green is on the court, and I'm just refreshing Twitter, trying to be interactive with the people, and people are asking, like, why is Jalen Green even on the court? And if you're Ime Udoka in this game, Jabari Smith Jr. didn't play very well. I thought Tari Eason looked kind of scared in the moment a couple different times. He had nasty turnovers, and he got credited for 2, but it was 1 that he almost turned it over. But luckily, Fred VanVleet was there to stay at us to keep it steady. And like, again, though he had a terrible series, in the back of your mind, you think to yourself, well, we're down by 8. We need some creation, because in this series, when we have not scored a lot, this is going to sound stupid because obviously it's the case. When we have not scored a lot, we haven't stood a chance. But Jalen Green, man, he hit 2 shots that he could be on the burner. And just like that, it's an 8-point game. And that was a 2-point game because Jalen Green hit 2 threes. Just the idea of what he could blow out to be was just enough to keep him on the floor, especially if there was nobody on the bench that was playing above him, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what this offseason looks like from the team. This is a hella successful season. I think going into it, when you look back on my video, I thought that they were going to be like the 11 seed this season. They were the 2. Right? So again, you don't love the fact that you're a first round exit, but if you look at it from a bird's eye view, you're thinking about the future of this team, there's nothing but bright things going forward, right? Okay, so shout out to the Houston Rockets for even making it interesting, because I want to remind you, this Golden State Warriors team was 23-7 with Jimmy Butler. You took them to 7. That is a real accomplishment. I'm not here for like moral victories. I mean, maybe I am. I kind of am. Yeah, I'm here for moral victories. That's a moral victory for you. And now we got to start thinking about the Golden State Warriors being matched up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I promise you this, I mean, I don't know how I feel about the series other than saying that I feel pretty good about the Minnesota Timberwolves winning. Some of those stretches that we saw in this series where the Warriors went 4 to 5 minutes multiple times a game without scoring, that's just not going to be something that you can do often. You're going to be able to get away with it a few different times in the playoff series, but you're not going to be able to do that often against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are just better on the offensive side of the floor. They have a guy, Anthony Edwards, who we just saw in the last series can pick some things apart. Now, the Warriors are obviously a better defense than what the Lakers just showed us, but they're also a small team, and we just saw Rudy Gobert, Godzilla, give them 26 and 24. Julius Randle used his size, had a great series. So this should be a dogfight for sure. I'm leaning towards Timberwolves, but I guess I'll talk about that in the future. Is there anything else in my notes about this game? Warriors through their own zone. I said I was going to get into that. The Warriors getting into their own zone was actually pretty dope because it forced a lot of the Rockets to take long shots. And because they were taking long shots, like this is the bad thing about a zone. It's tough to rebound in the zone. That was something you get taught as a very young kid. You got to get a body on people because you're not necessarily guarding somebody one-on-one, right? So it's tough to get rebounds. But because you were forcing the Houston Rockets to take long shots, you didn't have to worry about that because long shots is long misses. And a few different times it ended up being a breakaway from Jimmy Butler or Pods hitting something like that. So it ended up working out pretty well. I thought Steve Kerr, again, coached a good game, even if I don't agree with Jonathan Kuminga going out there and playing some early minutes. It just felt like he had Buddy Hield game in the back of his pocket. Buddy Hield, 9 of 11 for 3. And some of them, I mean, one of them was what? Right before half court at the end of a quarter? Like, some of these shots were ridiculous. And some of them, they just completely forgot Buddy Hield on the floor, right? And part of that is, like, we're so hell-bent on making sure Steph Curry is not getting off that if it happens to be Buddy Hield, then so be it. And it happened to be Buddy Hield. Again, though Steph Curry didn't shoot the ball well into basically the fourth quarter, I thought he was fucking amazing defensively, all things considered. He ain't Amen Thompson. He ain't Tony Allen. He ain't Ron Harper or Scottie Pippen, but for his size, he was not giving anything up. And this is something I've talked about a lot about Steph Curry. I think as a defender, he's always been underrated. A lot of the times he does end up being, not necessarily in this era, but some of his previous eras when they were winning championships, he did end up being the worst defensive player on the court, but that didn't make him a bad defensive player. Being the worst defensive player on the court on the team that was number 1 and number 2 in defense could still mean you're a good defensive player. And I thought today, even when his shot wasn't falling, I mean, he got to the glass. He ended up, he didn't draw a charge, but he didn't draw the charge. He olayed away to a missed layup because it looked like he was setting up, then he moved last second. So I just thought, again, had a phenomenal game. And I love the fact that Steve Kerr was like, man, this is game 7, Steph. You got to play almost every single second. And I think he did end up basically playing every minute until the game was out of reach, and then they let the other guys come in. So good game for the Golden State Warriors, and they continue to see if they can go on the ultimate run. Shout out to the Houston Rockets. Let's talk about Cavs versus Pacers game number 1. The Pacers going to win into Cleveland, win 121-112. Again, we found out like maybe an hour or two before that Darius Garland was not going to be suited up. They are really optimistic, though, that he'll get ready for game number 2. So that's cool. I really want Darius Garland to play in the series because I want this series to be really, really good. And I think Darius Garland obviously helps that a ton. One of the questions I had asked the guys is like, where do the Cavaliers start off defensively with Tyrese Halliburton? Will it be Max Strus? Will it be this and that? Ended up being Max Strus very early on. Sometimes ended up being Sam Merrill. They just shifted around quite a bit. I thought that Tyrese Halliburton did an amazing job in this game. Full stop. On both sides of the floor, there was a stretch with like 2.5 minutes left. Tyrese Halliburton himself got 3 back-to-back defensive stops. And you think about who the Cleveland Cavaliers are, you think about what the Cleveland Cavaliers did in last series, when you think about them just completely picking on Tyler Hero defensively, that's who Tyrese Halliburton is going to be on the defensive side this series. He is the weakest link defensively on this team. So it's like, we're going to put you in every single action. They were doing that early on, and it was all for naught because the Cavs shot terribly from 3. I think it's their second worst shooting game of the entire season. But for them to try to go at him with 2.5 minutes to go and him to come out there and get 3 stops and then come down there and hit a dagger, like, that's my boy. I felt that. And they felt comfortable with letting it be a pick and roll switch. And Tyrese's like, okay, you're going to switch the big fella on me. And the big fella, Jared Allen, is really good into space, all things considered. Not gonna cut it today. Step back 3. I thought he was amazing. And of course, he's always gonna raise the level of play on the offensive side of the ball because he is one of the premier playmakers in basketball. And when the ball is in his hands, the team will not turn the ball over often. The stat goes, they are 23-7 this season. When he scores over 20, damn it, he hit 22 today. Now, let's take a step back. Andrew Nembhard, phenomenal game as well. You know, he's getting into that territory. That territory, you talk about playoff risers, you be thinking about like Jokic, you think about Luka again before this season, you think about some all-time legends. And then right under that, you got to think about Andrew Nembhard because he continues to, man, the sidestep 28-foot 3 with 2 seconds on the shot clock. It would have hurt my soul if I was a Cavs fan. I ain't gonna lie. He hit that shot and he played good defense. All things considered, there's only so much you can do against Donovan Mitchell and stuff. Aaron Nesmith, also really good in this game. So they had a lot of good things going for them. But let me take a step back. They shot 53% from 3. 53% from 3. And 53%. That's crazy. 53%. I'm just like, obviously there's other ways to win games. There's other ways to win. They're not going to shoot 53% 4 different times to win this series. There's other ways the Pacers can beat you. Do not get me wrong. But this one, it felt like, what are the meme? The magnet ball meme? That's what it felt like it is. So they were not missing on the offensive side. There was one 3 that I think it was it Obi? Obi hit a sidestep corner 3, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. What are you supposed to do about that? On the other side of things, I thought the Cavs went on some of their best runs or like looked best offensively when Obi was on the court. So I wonder what that's going to look like if Darius Garland comes back. The Cavs also had as many points in the paint as a team can have in a single game. They had 70. It was, I made the tweet. It was like, I haven't played a ton of Marvel Rivals in the last month or so, but I just be thinking about different alts and Spider-Man, you get a web, you get a paint touch, you get a paint touch, damn it, because everybody just get into the basket. And part of that was like foul trouble for some dudes, but also the Pacers weren't playing great point of attack defense, and it just ended up being, Donovan Mitchell getting downhill, or Evan Mobley had a really good offensive game today. It's kind of washed out. Or like Ty Jerome get into his floater range, and he didn't hit a ton of those today, but like you expect him to hit more. So, there's like optimism on both sides, right? Darius Garland's coming back, and you don't expect the opposing team to shoot 53% from 3. The optimism on the Pacers side, hey, we went into a game 1, and they always say a series don't start till the home team loses. We just took a game 1. We still do have one of the best players in the series in Tyrese Halliburton if he continues to shoot. And, well, we just have depth. Both teams have depth. This is going to be a dogfight. My original thing was Cavs. I think I said Cavs in 5. That was before I knew that Darius Garland was, like, that toe injury was that bad. Sometimes, like, when you go against an inferior opponent, which is what the Miami Heat were to the Cavs, you can feel okay with just sitting the guy here or there. I thought that's what it was. And the same thing with, like, Drew Holiday in this other series. So I don't know exactly what to think about that. We did have some zone get thrown out there a little bit, which is, again, every single team, every single series has seen zone so far this playoffs. I think it's phenomenal that zone is being used so damn heavily. It's so cool to see Kenny Atkinson go the opposite of like every single team in basketball. I feel like every team has the one player that is strictly there for the defensive side of the ball. One of these wings that like is an elite level defensive player is Chris Dunn, is Derrick Jones Jr., it's Amen Thompson. It's like those type of dudes that just are not a threat to shoot the ball whatsoever. Every single team has one of those dudes, and it feels like those teams end up starting one of those dudes, except for the Cavs, who has a guy like that on the bench, and his name is Isaac Okoro. But instead of starting Isaac Okoro to hound Tyrese Halliburton, they'd rather just have all the shooting in the world. Sam Merrill, you got to defend tonight, brother. We know you can shoot, so go ahead and defend your ass off too. And I think that's always interesting to see different philosophies come out. But that's pretty much it. I'm excited to see what the rest of the series hold. I've said it once, and I'll say it again because next year the Bulls will be in the finals. The NBA runs through the Central Division, baby. Always has, always will be.